Welcome to a new episode of Moroccan Wealth Podcast. Today, we're having a very intriguing topic. Right after the introduction, we will talk about women's right in Morocco. So stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today's Deep Dive is on a topic I think you're already interested in learning more about, women's rights in Morocco. And to kick things off, I actually found this pretty amazing fact during my research. Get this. Back in 1957, right around when Morocco gained its independence, 17% of university students were women.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So today, we're going to kind of explore how things have evolved since then.
Yeah,
All right.
Sounds good. And it really is fascinating to see how women's rights are so deeply intertwined with Morocco's history.
Right.
Even before the French protectorate,
Yeah.
there's this rich tapestry of cultural and religious influences that shaped women's roles.
So paint a picture for us. What were those traditional roles actually like?
Well, imagine a society where women's lives were really deeply embedded in the family structure. They were the cornerstones, the nurturers, the ones responsible for upholding the family unit. And this was obviously reinforced by strong cultural norms and interpretations of Islamic teachings.
And within that context, were there any voices that were like, hold on, this isn't quite right? Our sources mentioned something about early Islamic feminists.
Yes. Exactly. Even back then, you had these incredible women challenging the prevailing interpretations and highlighting the potential of women within their faith. One quote that really struck me was, "Our struggle is not against our faith, but against misinterpretations that limit women's potential."
Wow.
It really captures the essence of their movement.
Yeah.
These were pioneers navigating this, tricky path between tradition and their desire for progress.
Right. It's amazing how those early voices really paved the way for future generations. Then comes the early 20th century and the French protectorate.
Yeah.
How did that impact things?
Well, it's a little bit ironic, but the French protectorate, despite being a colonial power, actually opened up some unexpected opportunities for women.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
For one, they brought with them a new education system.
Okay. And for the first time, girls had access to formal schooling.
Interesting.
This, coupled with the emergence of early women's organizations, really started to shift the landscape.
So did that mean, more women were demanding rights at this point?
It's like that famous quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world."
Right.
It held true then, and it still does today.
Totally.
As more women became literate, their desire to participate more fully in society just grew.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Morocco gains its independence in 1956.
Yes.
Such a pivotal moment. Did that newfound freedom translate into concrete changes for women?
Absolutely. It was a time of incredible hope, a chance to reshape the nation.
Right.
One of the first steps was the introduction of the Personal Status Code in 1958,
Okay.
which brought some key changes to family law. Then, just a few years later, the 1962 Constitution enshrined the principle of equal rights for all citizens.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, in 1963, women gained the right to vote and run for office.
That's right.
Wow, things were really moving.
They were, but, it's important to remember that progress wasn't a straight line.
Right.
Deeply rooted traditional beliefs continue to pose a challenge, making this journey towards equality a really intricate and ongoing one.
Yeah, it highlights the fact that changing laws is only one part of the equation. You also need to change hearts and minds.
Absolutely.
Now, our sources point to the Moudawana reform of 2004 as a major turning point in Morocco's journey towards gender equality.
Right.
What exactly made this reform so significant?
The Wadawada reform was a true game changer.
Okay.
It brought sweeping changes to family law, aligning it more closely with international human rights standards.
Like what? What kind of changes?
Well, for instance, it raised the minimum marriage age for girls, granted women equal rights in divorce and child custody.
Wow.
These were monumental shifts that had a tangible impact on women's lives.
So it wasn't just symbolic, it actually changed things on the ground.
Exactly.
One of the most powerful things about the Mutawana reform was its attempt to balance traditional values with modern rights. As one source aptly put it, the Mutawana reform represents a significant step towards gender equality in Morocco, balancing traditional values with modern rights.
Right.
It wasn't about erasing tradition, but about evolving it to better reflect the realities and needs of women in contemporary Morocco.
I imagine the reform's implementation wasn't without its challenges, especially considering the diverse perspectives within Moroccan society.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The pace of adoption varied greatly between urban and rural areas, highlighting the persistent influence of traditional values. And of course, it sparked debates and discussions, which is to be expected with any kind of significant social change.
It reminds us that achieving lasting change requires more than just laws on paper.
Yeah.
It also demands a shift in societal attitudes and beliefs, and that takes time and sustained effort.
Definitely.
Now, let's shift our focus to women's participation in politics and leadership.
Okay.
What kind of progress has Morocco made in this arena?
Well, Morocco has taken some significant steps to promote women's political participation.
Okay.
They've introduced quota systems in parliament, and the 2011 constitution further solidified the guarantee of equality. But as is often the case, the reality is more nuanced.
Meaning, despite these advancements, women still face hurdles in reaching leadership positions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cultural barriers and that stark urban-rural divide continue to be major obstacles.
So are those cultural barriers like social expectations about women's roles?
Fatima Siddiqui, a prominent Moroccan feminist scholar, put it perfectly. She said, "We've come far, but there's still work to do. We need more women in decision-making positions to truly achieve gender equality in politics."
Her words underscore that while progress has been made, the journey towards true equality in leadership is far from over.
Absolutely.
And what about economic empowerment and workplace rights? How is Morocco working to create a level playing field for women in the workforce?
Well, Morocco has shown a real commitment to ensuring women have equal opportunities in the economic sphere.
Right.
They've implemented labor laws that protect against discrimination and harassment and promote equal pay. There's also been a remarkable rise in female entrepreneurship.
That's great to hear. Sounds like they're actively working to empower women economically.
They are. The government has actually launched initiatives to support women-owned businesses, recognizing their contribution to the economy. And there's this growing awareness that empowering women economically isn't just about fairness.
Right.
It's about unlocking Morocco's full potential.
Yeah.
As one report aptly stated, empowering women economically is not just about fairness, it's about unlocking Morocco's full potential.
That's such a powerful statement. It really highlights how gender equality and economic prosperity are deeply intertwined.
Precisely. It's not just a social issue, it's an economic imperative.
It sounds like Morocco has made incredible strides in advancing women's rights. But there are still challenges ahead, especially when it comes to bridging that urban-rural divide and addressing those ingrained cultural barriers that limit women's full participation in society.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. The ongoing efforts needed to ensure that the progress made reaches every corner of Morocco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned the urban-rural divide.
Right. Can you elaborate on the specific challenges women face in rural areas of Morocco?
It's a critical point because while the overall literacy rate in Morocco has improved, there are still pockets, particularly in rural areas, where girls face significant barriers to education. This, of course, limits their future opportunities and perpetuates a cycle of inequality.
It's heartbreaking that geography can still play such a determining role in a woman's life.
Yeah.
And it's not just education, right? What other obstacles are more prevalent in rural communities?
Well, I think cultural barriers, deeply rooted traditions, and societal expectations often play a more prominent role in these rural communities.
Okay.
While progressive laws are in place, their impact can be slower in areas where traditional beliefs about women's roles remain strong.
So changing those deeply held beliefs becomes as crucial as changing the laws themselves.
Exactly. One source really hit the nail on the head when they said, Changing hearts and minds is as important as changing laws when it comes to women's empowerment in Morocco.
Powerful quote.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the need for a multifaceted approach that tackles both the legal framework and those ingrained cultural norms.
Absolutely.
It's a powerful reminder that true progress requires more than just top-down legal reforms. It requires grassroots efforts to shift attitudes and create a society that truly embraces gender equality.
Right.
Now let's talk about a specific example of how the Mutawana reform impacted women's lives.
Okay.
One of the most significant changes brought about by the reform was in the area of divorce. Before the reform, women faced a much more difficult and often unfair process when seeking a divorce.
Right.
They had to prove specific grounds for divorce,
Exactly.
which were often difficult to meet.
Yes.
And they had limited rights when it came to child custody and financial support.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mutawana reform essentially leveled the playing field for women in divorce proceedings.
Yeah.
Could you give us a real-life example of how this played out?
Yeah. So I recall reading a story about a woman named Fatima
Okay.
who was trapped in an unhappy and abusive marriage
Right.
before the Mutawana reform.
Mm-hmm.
She would have had very limited options.
Yeah.
But with the new laws in place, she was able to initiate divorce proceedings and gain custody of her children.
Oh,
She also received financial support from her ex-husband,
okay.
which allowed her to rebuild her life and create a safe and stable environment for her children.
That's incredibly powerful. It shows how legal reforms can have a tangible impact on individual lives,
Yeah.
giving women the agency and resources to break free from difficult situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other areas where the Mutawana reform had a significant impact?
Another key area was child custody.
Okay.
Prior to the reform,
Mm-hmm.
fathers were automatically granted custody of children in most cases,
Wow.
even if the mother was the primary caregiver.
Wow.
The Mutawana reform introduced the concept of the best interest of the child,
Okay.
which meant that courts had to consider the child's well-being when making these custody decisions.
That's a huge step forward in recognizing the importance of a mother's role in a child's life.
Yes.
It's no longer just about tradition or patriarchal assumptions,
Right.
but about what's truly best for the child.
Exactly. And I think it reflects a broader shift towards recognizing women's rights as human rights.
Mhm.
It's not just about granting women special privileges.
Right.
It's about ensuring they have equal rights and opportunities in all aspects of life.
Yeah. So as we delve deeper into the specifics of these reforms, we start to see the real human impact.
Yeah.
It's not just about abstract legal concepts, but about real women's lives being transformed.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that these changes didn't happen overnight.
Right.
They were the result of years of advocacy and struggle by countless women and men
Yeah.
who believed in a more just and equitable Morocco.
It's inspiring to think about the courage and resilience of those who fought for these changes.
Mhm.
They paved the way for future generations to benefit from greater equality and opportunity.
Absolutely. And their work is far from finished.
Right.
As we've discussed, challenges remain, particularly in bridging that urban-rural divide
Yeah.
and ensuring that the progress made reaches all segments of society.
And that's where the listener comes in, right?
Yeah,
This deep dive has been incredibly informative, but it's clear that the conversation doesn't end here.
exactly. As you continue to learn about Morocco's journey toward gender equality, I encourage you to think critically about the challenges that remain and the potential solutions. What other legal changes might be needed to further align Moroccan law with the principles of gender equality?
Right.
What role can education, economic empowerment, and cultural change play in continuing this journey?
These are crucial questions to ponder.
Yeah.
And they highlight the fact that achieving lasting change requires a multifaceted approach that involves not just legal reforms, but also societal shifts in attitudes and beliefs.
Absolutely.
It's inspiring to see how Morocco has woven these advancements for women into its journey, even amidst its complex history. It makes you realize how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
But as you've pointed out, the work is far from over. What would you say are the most pressing issues facing women in Morocco today, particularly in achieving full gender equality?
One of the most urgent areas that comes to mind is violence against women.
Right.
Despite some legal protections, domestic violence, sexual harassment, and other forms of gender-based violence remain far too common.
It's disheartening that even with progress in other areas, this issue persists. What can be done to address this?
Well, I think it requires a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
Strengthening law enforcement, ensuring perpetrators are held accountable, and providing support services for survivors are crucial. But perhaps even more fundamental is addressing those underlying societal norms and attitudes that perpetuate violence against women.
So it's about changing that mindset, challenging those deep-seated cultural beliefs that condone or excuse violence.
Yeah.
It's about empowering women and girls to speak out, to know their rights, and to feel safe seeking help.
Exactly. And it also requires engaging men and boys as allies in this fight.
Right.
Creating a culture of respect and equality requires a collective effort from all members of society.
We've talked a lot about legal reforms, but you've also highlighted the importance of economic empowerment.
Yes.
What are some specific ways that Morocco can further support women economically?
One area with immense potential is supporting women entrepreneurs. Providing access to microfinance, business training, and mentorship programs can help women overcome the unique challenges they face in starting and growing businesses.
It's about giving them the tools and resources they need to succeed. And I imagine access to childcare is also crucial for women's economic participation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Affordable, quality childcare is essential for enabling women to pursue their careers without having to choose between work and family.
Yeah.
Investing in childcare infrastructure not only benefits women, but also contributes to the overall economy.
It's about creating a system that supports women in all their roles, recognizing that their contributions are valuable both at home and in the workforce.
Absolutely.
What about the role of education in empowering women? We touched upon the challenges girls face in accessing education, particularly in rural areas. What more can be done?
Well, beyond simply increasing access, it's also about ensuring the quality of education that girls receive, providing a curriculum that challenges gender stereotypes, promotes critical thinking, and equips girls with the skills they need to thrive in the 21st century is vital.
So it's not just about getting girls into school, but about what they learn and how they are empowered within those schools.
Yes.
It's about creating an environment that nurtures their potential and encourages them to dream big.
Precisely. And let's not forget the importance of role models.
Right.
Showcasing the stories of successful Moroccan women in various fields can inspire and motivate girls to pursue their own ambitions.
Representation matters.
Yes.
Seeing women in leadership positions, in STEM fields, in the arts, it sends a powerful message that anything is possible.
It does. And it's important to remember that the journey toward gender equality is not just about women.
Right.
It's about creating a more just and equitable society for everyone.
Totally.
When women are empowered, families thrive, communities prosper, and nations advance.
That's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that investing in women is not just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. It benefits everyone. So as we wrap up this deep dive into women's rights in Morocco, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with? Something to ponder as they continue exploring this topic.
I would say this. The progress made in Morocco demonstrates that change is possible.
Yeah.
Even in the face of deeply ingrained cultural norms, it requires a combination of legal reforms, grassroots activism, and a shift in societal mindsets.
Right.
And it's a journey that requires ongoing commitment and vigilance to ensure that the gains made are sustained and expanded upon.
It's an ongoing process, and it's up to each of us to stay informed, engaged, and to contribute to creating a world where every woman has the opportunity to reach her full potential.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into women's rights in Morocco.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a fascinating and insightful conversation.
It really has.
Until next time, keep diving deep.